Hi and welcome to the Crafty Whisk. I'm going to be sharing my very special mud cake recipe with you today, chocolate mud cake. It's a no-fail cake. It's great as a base for cake balls, cake pops, and just a general all-round jolly good chocolate cake. I'll pop the list of ingredients and the recipe down below for you. But basically we just sift all of our dry ingredients together, and I'm using all-purpose flour or plain flour. This particular recipe today I'm actually doing gluten-free, and this recipe is fabulous because you cannot tell the difference between gluten-free and normal cake. They taste exactly the same. It rises exactly the same. So because I'm using all-purpose or plain flour, we do need to add the rising agents, which is baking powder and baking soda. And of course a little bit of salt. And for the cocoa component of it, you need to use a cocoa powder of very, very good quality. In Australia, this one is very good, the Nestle. And of course, Hershey's cocoa, you can't go wrong. It's a really, really good cocoa powder. Most mud cakes require you to melt chocolate, actual chocolate, into the cake. This one is very different in that you don't. And it's probably a lighter texture mud cake than the really, really dense mud cakes that you tend to get at cafes. But I'll tell you what, when I had the cake business, everybody just wanted this flavour. And you can add essences to it, so you can put a little raspberry essence in there, and it becomes almost like a red velvet then, but doesn't have the red colour. And the red colouring, we can do without the red colouring, I think. It's really nice with raspberry coulis in it as well. But I'm just showing you the basic one today. And you don't have to go overboard with the sifting. I just do it once just to get rid of the lumps out of the sugar and the cocoa powder. And then I just mix it all through because the sugar tends to go down to the bottom. And now we need to add our wet ingredients. I use 2 extra large eggs. So the grammage of each egg is about 68 grams per egg. It does use half a cup of vegetable oil. Please do not miss this step. This is what makes the cake moist, and this cake stays moist for 2 weeks. Yes, you heard me. 2 weeks at least. It doesn't last any longer than that in our house. I just had to make sure that some was left so I could test it. So it's perfect for wedding cakes. Now I use buttermilk, and I find that helps it rise as well, and it just gives a little bit of a tangy flavour in there. You can't really taste it. If you don't have buttermilk, for 1 cup of milk you pop in a tablespoon of vinegar, let it sit for 5 minutes, and then that works just as well. The vanilla is meant to be 2 teaspoons. I just give 2 jolly good squirts, and I use vanilla paste, not vanilla essence. There is a difference between the two. Vanilla paste is a much more intense, beautiful flavour. And if you're using it in vanilla cakes and pale coloured cakes, you actually get the really nice look of the vanilla seeds going through it. I'm putting a guard on my KitchenAid because the second step to this cake, it gets very messy. So my KitchenAid is able to do 1 batch of cake, and if anything larger than that, I've got to go to my big Kenwood. So you mix it on medium speed for 2 minutes, and I'm using the paddle attachment. After the 2 minutes is up, you need a cup of boiling water. Now, if you want to heighten the flavour of the chocolate, put in a cup of hot coffee instead. Unfortunately, there's members of my family that can't do the caffeine in the coffee, so I just use the boiling water. And then you just stir that until it's pretty mixed through. And it is a very, very runny batter. So don't be alarmed when it just looks like liquid. It's meant to. So now you need to prepare the tin, or I normally prepare the tin in the 2 minutes that it's mixing. I spray the tin, then add baking paper or parchment paper, and then I spray that again. And for anything over a 7-inch, either round or square, I pop in a flour nail and spray the flour nail as well. So it's a good idea here just to run a spatula through, make sure you got everything off of the bottom, so you'd have the same texture of the mix all the way through. You don't have like the more firmer mix down the bottom if the paddle didn't go all the way down. And I'll pop up a few of the cooking times that have worked for me with the various size cake pans as well. Another preparation tip is I use baking strips, and I've got them soaking in water while all this is happening. And then you pop the baking strips around the cake pan. That allows for a much more flat, even finished cake result. If you're not concerned about that, then you don't have to use the baking strips. I also pop a piece of baking paper or parchment paper on the top of the cake as well, also to help it cook a little bit flatter. So at the moment, it's pretty much a standard, very rich chocolate cake. That's why you need a very good quality cocoa. If you don't use a good quality cocoa, it's going to taste like a mediocre chocolate cake. This is where I'm putting the baking strips on. Now you can just use cut up towels and then wet them and use a bulldog clip to clip them together. I've just had these baking strips forever, so I just continue to use them until they fall apart. And they do need to be wet. And I'll pop the oven temperature and everything in the recipe for you as well. I do recommend having an oven thermometer to make sure your oven is at the correct temperature. The cake is done when it's springy to the touch and a skewer comes out just with a few crumbs on it, but nothing sticky on it. Now you need to leave the cake in the tin for 10 minutes, and then it goes into the fridge for half an hour. Very important. That's what gives it its mud cake consistency. If you don't do that, it doesn't go as muddy. So it's nice and even and flat. And I'll show you in a future video what I do with this cake to make my famous cake balls. I'll see you then. Thanks for watching.